Kusile maswahla mahle siyanivusela siyanemukelela mhla ekuseni. It's Easter Monday, the 21st of April. Sisema ukuthi impelasonto yenu ihambe kahle so far. It is a long weekend. Labanye solo basemakhaya ba-enjoya wona holiday elphasika, umkhosi welphasika. It's a beautiful morning. Sisema kusiniphilile lamhla ekuseni. My name is Lungelele Makakwela. I'm with my co-host Umguni Shumnagbili. How are you this morning? How was your weekend?
It was great, Lulu. Yeah. It was amazing. I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. It was a great Easter weekend.
Yeah, did you catch up with family? Did you at least do
church as well, family, church, relatives.
Yeah, holiday
yes.
No. Cha nami bengithamele kumsakazo wethu Eswatini TV. Sibonga wona nje le dedication la qhubekana kuyikhombisa kusisakadela major national events lapha ekhaya Eswatini. Bengingakhona ke lo ukuthi ngidawuphuma kane ngana ngiyele nale kodwa ngalokuthi umsakazo wethu nangemambala bakusakada yona Easter weekend ngikhonile ke kulandzela cishe tonke tinshumayelo kodwa nje on Sunday ngentele ngihlale ngwenda ngatiyela mina esontweni sithemba ukuthi kube imphela sonto lephephile. I think that's the biggest one coming out of this weekend. Safety, no lives were lost. Kude bantu labalimele sakhulumisana nomxhumanisi wemaphoyisa embubene sive Chief Pico lawasiqinisekisa ukuthi emaphoyisa atabawenda umsebenzi wawo waphinza wacela esivenze eMaswati ukuthi nje sichubeke sente lokulesikutayele kuhloniphana nekuba responsible etinhlangothini tonkana. Siyabonga ukuthi namhla ekuseni sivuka sida lapha ehlelweni ukusetha imibiko siyitfolele ngathi noma mphombeni
ngakho. We're hoping yes sisibhekile sifisa ukukhuluma naye later on the program kuve ukuthi impela somvo ihambe kanjani. Utasivitela nje i-weekend police report kuve ukuthi tikhona invele tigameko letibikiwe eveni lonkhana and staphinze sibuke nje nayitinye itindzaba takumela ukuthi tikolwa tivaliwe so bantfwana bahlele emakhaya benda lokwa nalokwa sitaba sikhulumisa na head coach association Eswatini Swim Academy bafisa ukuthi bantfwana bethu batawufunda swimming because now it's one of the beneficial sports that is physically and emotionally and also mentally. Kuyasita nje ukuthi umfana ahle angenela swimming activities awutokhona ukuthi ashukumise umtimba. Sitaba sikhulumisana na head coach Sam kuva ukuthi what are the benefits of swimming naloko ukuthi kuyasitela ukuthi ba shift kancane kubukeleni TV because nakuvala tikola kuba iba nengakhulu lama hour laba wabukelako babukele TV noma labanye sabane ma tablets so bahlala kakhulu la kuma TV screen so sifuna kuba khweshisa kancane nje kuma TVs babukela amanye ama activities tabe sinabo 6:30 ekseni.
Kanzike siyafuna nokubuka temidlalo namuhla ekuseni sitawukhumbutana nje lo ukuthi match week 21 we-MTN Premier League utawuqhubeka kahle kuleli viki leli lesilicala even though we saw one game yesterday between Eswatini United and Sisonke which ended nge-goalless draw 0-0 kulamaqembu lamabili Eswatini United neSisonke. But as of Monday the 21st of April which I believe is today, we'll see a couple of games. We do have Highlanders versus Ilovo. We have Royal Leopard versus Young Buffaloes. The Swallows versus Rangers. Madlenya versus Moneni. Nsingizini versus Ezulwini. As well as Manzini Seabirds versus Green Mamba. The league is nearing its end, and the title race, Lapa Etulu, it's becoming interesting by the day. We do want to, really drill into what is going to happen going forward, because as we look at this fixture, some of the important teams have very easy matchups, but it's the same matchups that have caused some upsets throughout this league. Engabe Lomusha, will they be able to emerge victorious? Which one is going to be lucky enough and show character? It's going to be an interesting day indeed. But outside of that, in the English Premier League, some of which were very, very interesting results. Some were very disappointing if you think about it. It was match day 33 of 38, meaning we are only left with exactly 5 games in the English Premier League. Of course, Liverpool has been stuttering. They have been limping towards the tail end of all major tournaments, really, if you think about it. Not only the English Premier League, in the UEFA Champions League, they didn't manage to reach the final stages. But their last remaining hope is the English Premier League. Will they be able to lift the trophy? They could after this week or the next week, but a lot is at play because other teams that are just, playing really good football like Arsenal are still showing really, really good football display. They beat Ipswich Town yesterday with 4-0. That is Arsenal. United lost, of course, and Liverpool managed to escape a goalless draw against Leicester City. It was 1-0. They needed that goal desperately. I really do want to get into conversation and really understand what it is that is missing in Liverpool. But our corner in Vele, their wins have not been convincing lately. All of that this morning at 7:30. Good morning once again.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Kwalomhla ngiphinza ngikuvusela ngikwamukela ehlelweni solobukela Kusile Breakfast Show. Ihlelo lalomuhla kungumsombuluko sephetha emaholide e-Easter. Sitabona tindzabate siswati. Silo semhlaba sithi kunelethemba lelushintsho, intuthuko kanye nenjabulo kulomnyaka wa 2025. Iphefumula enkonzweni yokukhumbula kuvuka kwaJesu Kristu enkundleni yesive kasomhlolo. Ngonyama ithela ushintsho lutsinga ukuthi emaswati agcine kakhulu ekukholweni angasuki kuNkulunkulu.
Emakholwa aphume ngebuningi bawo kungenela inkonzo yokukhumbula kufa kwaJesu Kristu enkundleni yesive kasomhlolo. Lenkonzo ke lena ibusiswe kuba khona kwesilo semhlaba nendlovukazi Mhlekazi. Kube intokoto lenkhulu eSwatini. Ingani phela even leSwatini kwenteka lokungakavami kulamanye emave ukuthi sive singahlanganyela nemakhosi aso ngalolu hlobo. Lokhu ke kulandzela ukuthi inkonzo teliphasika ticale ngalesihlanu esontweni lesive ngelanga lekukhumbula kufa kwakhe Jesu Kristu. Lamakholwa lebekalichamkisa kito tonke tinkhalo telive abekatse achamuka ngephansi kwetambulelo totintsatfu temabandla lakhona evene. Emakhosi abasingethwe bomake emakhosikati Sigodlo, mvunankulu welive neliphini lakhe, ibandla letindvuna tembuso boba betikhulu kanye nemabandla ekweluleka. Silo semhlaba siphefumulela umhlaba kule nkonzo sithe emaswati kumele akhuleke kusimakade, akhulekele ukuthi uNkulunkulu alethele themba even laseSwatini kanye nasemhlabeni wonke.
Siyathandaza ke namuhla. Sithandazela live lemaswati. Sithandazela emaswati onke. Sithandazela sibusise uNkulunkulu. Sithandazela tonke tindzawo. Sithandazela bonke labagulako. Sithandazela bonke labasebuhlungweni. Sithi uNkulunkulu akababusise ngamunye ngamunye. Akabusise live lonke lemaswati. Akatsinze nalabangakalitfoli live lenkosi. Uthi live litawuphuma la stadium. Lawutsinza onke amaswati. Ngamunye ngamunye ngamunye. Amunye atsinzeke. Liphume live lenkosi. Ngoba live lenkosi akufanele sibe jealous ngalo. Sifuna siphume silikhokhele nangaphandle.
We must preach the word of God.
Siphumele ngaphandle eAfrika.
We must tell them in Africa.
Phumele ngaphandle emhlabeni wonkana.
The entire globe.
la khona kudzingeka uNkulunkulu kakhulu
When God is needed in desperate.
na ubukwa umhlaba ukuthi udungene kwani
If you look at the confusion in the world,
lapho kubulawana khona
people are killing each other.
lapho kuvana kuphelile
Where fellowship and living
kulahleke
harmony,
lithemba
there's no hope.
singemaswati siyathandaza
As a Maswati, we are praying.
kuthi uNkulunkulu akarestorishe
We
lithemba
are saying, may God restore
not only
faith,
Eswatini kuphela
not only Eswatini,
kepha eAfrika
but in Africa,
nemhlabeni wonkana
entire globe,
nesiveni sonke semaswati
entire Eswatini nation,
nemakhayeni onke
all home.
Ingwenyama iphindze yaveta ukuthi imphumelelo idzinga kucina kwelikholo emaswatini sive singesuki kuNkulunkulu.
namuhla langa lekufaka siqiniseko
But today we were sure
kwekuthi nakafa Jesu wavuka
that when Jesus died, and rose,
uvukile enhlitweni
He
yami
has risen in your heart.
and ngeke ngivumele
I
sathani
will not allow the devil,
uthi sathana athathe
that
lithuba
the devil may take chances.
sithi ke namuhla estadium
Today we are saying in the stadium,
lo live avukile wavuka
if he has risen and again
waletha impumelelo emaveni
and brought prosperity to nations,
nalaswatini sinelikholo lelikhulu
we in Eswatini also have a firm belief
uthi kiwo onke emaplans esinawo laswatini
that in all the plans we have in the kingdom,
lo nyaka simemedele transformation
this year we have declared transformation.
uthi 2025 is a year of transformation
That umnyaka wa 2025
it's a year of reforms
umnyaka wetinguquko
la khona
ezinkulu,
kutawushintsha i-social welfare
where the social fiber
ushintshe
will
onke
change,
ama-landscape elive leswatini
that the nation of Eswatini
ushintshe yonke impilo eswatini
and entire social well-being
ibe ngile ngcono
it's going for the better,
kepha idzinga abantu labanelikholo
but it needs people with faith.
ngeke yendeke na ukuthi elikholo
It
lakaNkulunkulu
will not happen without the faith of
idzinga
God.
likholo lethu liqine kakhulu uNkulunkulu
Your faith in God must be great.
singakhweshi kuye
You must not depart from
ngoba
God.
ngekukhwesha kuye sitabe saticalekisa
If you depart from God, you invite a curse.
Indlovukazi Mhlekazi ikhuthaze sive ukuthi siwathathele etulo emathuba ekuhlanganyela ndzawonye ukhondwe uNkulunkulu.
yemaswati maye sinenhlanhla lelive libusisekile naku sihleti lapha sikhumbula kufa nekuvuka kwenkosi yethu mangicabanga ukuthi kulamanye amave akweneki into leti njengaleti.
We as a Maswati are quite fortunate. Here we are today gathered in the commemoration of our risen Lord. I can imagine if other countries do have such a golden opportunity in coming before the Master and pray together as a nation.
Siyawuthi sasibanjwe yini emhlabeni
What shall we say before the Lord in that day?
ngoba lamathuba nanga abekiwe yini lo angathi lokuzana ngayo ukuthi kukhona lebekungibambile
What shall be your reason on that day of great judgment?
ngoba lamhlanje kusila stadium
Today we are here at the stadium.
siphelele sisive semaswati
We are all here as a nation.
uma nje uNkulunkulu makangaqhamuka lapha awabuthe emaswati ungaba kahle ngoba singahamba sonke.
If Jesus could come back today, we could all be raptured here because we are all believers.
Ukhona lo ngabuka eceleni bazalwane
Is there anyone that can be left behind here?
ivukile inkosi yemakhosi
Our Lord is risen today.
ivukile inkosi yemakhosi
Our Lord is risen today.
ivukele bani ivukele umne nawe
He has risen for you and I.
hambe tinyathelweni takhe.
Walk after his footsteps.
Mvunankulu welive umhlonishwa Russell Mniso Dlamini ugcizelele ukuthi kufanele ukuthi Jesu akhondwe kunaletinye tinkholo nabonkulunkuluwana labakhona.
Gcizelela ekutheni inkosi Jesu ifanele ukubongwa, ifanele ukukhondwa, ifanele ukukhothanyelwa yona yodwa. Ngenzaba yokuthi usuke emhlabeni, usuke ezulwini wethe emhlabeni etele kona kutawufela abantu. Lithi ke leli Bible kubeka phansi kwempilo. Jesu nakabeka yakhe impilo uvumela kufa ngoba ngaphandle kokuthi akuvumele kuye kungete kwendeka kufa kuye ngoba yena uyimpilo. Kepha ke uyakubeka phansi kuphila kwakhe aphinza ukuthathe futhi. Ukubeka phansi ngenxa yelithando lanayo aphinza ukuthathe akhombise sento semandla sokuthi nekufa kuyakhothama kuye.
Umbhekeli webukhosi umvanenkosi Simelane vule sivakashi semakhosi lekungu-Chris Smith okuliqhamukisa eveni leMelika. Umvanenkosi uphinze futhi waveda ukuthi live leSwatini kanye nendalo nemvelo yalo kumele limemetele ukuthi Jesu sewuvukile. Tinceku taNkulunkulu ke tilihlephulile livi laNkulunkulu. Livile kuqala lethulwe nguReverend Alfred Dlamini ngaphansi kwesihloko lesithi Jesu uqinisa uvuka kwakhe. Lesibili liqhamuke kuMake Makhosazana Dlamini ngaphansi kwesihloko lesithi Jesu ubonwa nguMaria. Lesithathu lethulwe nguReverend Mlamuli Dlamini ngaphansi kwesihloko lesithi Jesu ubonwa abafunzi kabili. Livi lesine lona lethulwe nguLady Archbishop Nomsahla Chwago ngaphansi kwesihloko lesithi Jesu ubonwa nguMaria nalabanye besifazane. Lesihlanu lona lethulwe nguBishop Galucha Dlamini ngaphansi kwesihloko lesithi Jesu ubonwa bafunzi elwandle. Livi lesithupha kube livi lekusonga emavi lona ke lethulwe nguPastor Matutu Mabuza. Abafundisi baphinze futhi bathandazela nelivi leSwatini. Silo semhlaba sibusise sakhiwo nemahovisi enhlangano ye-League of Churches lesikanekise esontweni lesive. Lesakhiwo singabita emalangeni lalinganiselwa esigidini kanike sinemahovisi lehlukehlukene ngekhathi kanye neligumbi lekuhlanganyela. Edintsabeni kubika Pholile Mazia enkundleni yesive kaSomhlolo.
Impelasonto eliphasika ibone tivakashi letahlukene titfokotela buhle belive leSwatini netindzawo letikhanga tivakashi letahlukene eveni. Emgcibelo indvuna yetekuvakasha Jane Simelane emukele tivakashi letivakashele eMantenga lapho tifundziswe khona kabanti ngempilo yeMaswati.
Tivakashi tingene ngebunyenti kulempelasonto. Letinye titele kutohlanganyela nemakhosi enkonzweni yeliphasika kanti letinye betikanekisa etindzaweni letahlukene tekungcebeleka nekukhanga tivakashi kufaka ekhazi likhaya lesintfu kuMantenga. Ngemgcibelo kulelikhaya indvuna yetekuvakasha nemvelo umhlonishwa Jane Simelane yemukele tivakashi yatinika tatfo locina ukuthi lihovisi layo livule tandla kucinisekisa ukuthi titiva tisekhaya uma tikuleli. Ikhuluma nayicocisana nemsakato emvuna ithe livangele ukuthi eMaswati akukhuthalele ukuvakasha live lawo i-domestic tourism ngilo lelenta ukuthi lakangwane limaketheke kakhulu kubantu bekuhamba.
Sitawuphakamisa ikakhulu kuye kusosilo lokuthi sisibambisa kakhulu la sihamba khona siyakhuluma ngetindzaba taka-tourism. Umlisa uyasigcugcutela ngokuthi asipromote i-domestic tourism ngekokuthi awavakashele lamahhotela lawa la ngekhatsi la Dutani. Siyabona nasifika la sikhanze kunebantu labaningi labanye basuka bonhlangano abanye basuka bombabane labanye basuka betela eMantenga Cultural Village. Lokusho kona lokuthi indzaba ye-domestic tourism nayo iyagcugcuteleka kakhulu. Siyabona ke kusuka abantu basemaveni belungu nalabanye labamnyama labasuka bo-South Africa boLesotho bobani bala kulelive batobuka lona live lakithi lakangwane. Bahambile ke ngekuhamba kwabo ke bayathola lokuthi nathi siyabachazela ukuthi kunalamanye ema-products kunaletinye tindzawo libangeta batetibona letinsha eminyakeni lotaka. So vele selabanye bashiya sebashito lokuthi sebavele babhukile emahhotela babhukela kuta bushfire eminyakeni lotako. Labanye bathi bayeta ngema-Easters kulomnyaka lotako betakuvakashela lenye indzawo lesibabikele ngayo.
Thandeka Buthelezi losuke eLesotho uncome live ngekunakekeleka kwendalo kuthula nemphatho layithola kuso sive seMaswati asavakasha.
Gwaqo yakhona mihle masifike eborder siphathwe kahle isithathe 20 minutes nje ukuthi sicross over ukwenza iresearch ukuthi sidingana amaphepha wethu ukuthi singene ngemonto sayithola nje kahle ku internet asiphatha kahle ku border control sazobuya futhi umyeni uthandile le ndawo uthanda indawo enezintaba pholile kuphephile lokho kubalekile kakhulu kithi ukuthi nje nathi sizwe esiphephile sazobuya futhi ukuthi ubuya for ibushfire unyaka ozayo yena uyabuthanda ubusika
Tisekuleli khaya tivakashi tijabulele imigidvo yesintu lefaya ekhatsi ummiso nenkutsamba embikweni welibandla lelibukete kuvakasha ngenyanga yeNdlovulenkhulu linyuke nga 11.9% linani letivakashi letingene kuleli nakucatsaniswa nesikhathi lesifanako eminyakeni lophelile. Kubikano Tsilesithole ngina Linton Dule Zigmantenga.
Sive sakazondwako uma kugucuka sikhathatekile ngemtholampilo losola ungasebenzi kodwa ke ube waphela kwakhiwa lesive sithi imitholampilo leseyisebenzisako ikhashane kakhulu njengoba kungumaguga madlanga empisi kanye nesibhedlela sakadvokolwako kanti ke yonke ingetulu kwemakhilomitha lalishumi.
Nasifika kulendzawo sithole ukuthi lesakhiwo lekumele sibe ngumtholampilo sesinetimpawu tekuguga sibe singakacali kusebenta njengoba letinye tetakhamuti tisitshele ukuthi umsebenzi wema ngenyanga yeNdlovana ngeminyaka wa 2021 kulesakhiwo sekuhwabuke i-ceiling kwacacwa tintsambo tagesi nalokunye lokunyenti etakhiweni letimbili tekuhlala tisebenti khona sithole ukuthi sekwagcwala umcuba lokhombisa ukuthi kade tinkhomo netimbongolo tatitfolela sibaya sesilungu kuletindlu tigange tona tizeta juba nentsambo yagezi lonemandla lebeyiwumikisa kulesakhiwo sivele sicocisene naso setibekele kanjena
na ungavuleka nje singajabula ngoba khona kududana kudzingine ukuthi sisigibele nasiyakhona
nasibuka lapha kwalahleka imali uhulumende wachitha imali lapha nemandla ebatali nabasebenta lapha konke lokho kwashabalala nje kanjalo
awulabatsala nje basibukele na ubuka nje ukuthi nyalo nje kusele kusale kuthathwa lamathayela
na uyakadvokolwako ufuna ube na 30 rand wegibela kufuna ube nancane na 20 rand noma na 30 rand lo munye phinzi kuthi uthenga elibhane sikuze ukhona ekujova siyafisa babe ukuthi nangabe lusito olukhona noma kuhulumende noma dinini tenkosi mane tisisite uvulwe lo mtholampilo.
Nasikhulumisana nalabanye labasebandleni lenkundla yasemadla ngempisi labangakathanzi kudalulwa bathi bayakubona kuhlupheka kwalesive nokokude labangakwenda ngoba lenzaba ifaka tindzaba temhlaba. Siphindze sachumana nelitiko letempilo lapho umchumanisi walo Sindiso Thabetse achazile ukuthi litiko liyayati indzaba yalesakhiwo noko kwamanje kude lelingakwenda njengoba isesetandleni temiphakathi lemibili. Live leSwatini latibekela umgomo lothi eMaswati angahambi sigaba lesenga emakhilomitha lasiphohlongo afuna umtholampilo noko sive salapha kaZandondona kagucuka kubukeka kuliphupho lelisesekhashane lelo. Kubika Mbongwadube nanothile Sithole eMbabane.
Osomabhizinisi labancane lebe baganekise enkundleni yesive kaSomhlolo bathi nanoma inkonzo teliphasika lonyaka tibanjwe ekhathi nenyanga kuthengisa kwabo kulemphela sonto akukafani nelide. Labo somabhizinisi bakuvete lokhu uma baxoxisana netinzathelo talomsakado kalobamba.
Aseneminyaka shemidayisa inkonzo teliphasika bathengathengela kafanana but nenyanga nje yacounter lo ukuthi bebangaholi bonke but nje bona bathengela akayi ngalo ukuthi abakaholi
besithi sitozama nathi njoba nitibonela nako nje sijikane konke tinyama yonke sibila kwemufa kimi ube ngconywana umnyaka lophelile kunalo ngingadi ke labanye
liyahamba ngathi ngathi liyahamba ba support abantu bomnene akweyi yes
kodwa lapha eSomfeni lesive baba nekusicosha ukuthi abasifuni bafuna siphume kodwa ke namhla kungcono kakhulu angisakhumbuli ukuthi ngacala nini ke lokuthengisa vele kusukela ngimncane ngiyathengisa.
Bhizinisi ihamba kahle kakhulu nethi nje soda ukuthi manje basakhetha manje letinhle la sitokhola ukuthi nathi sivele kutokhola ukuthi kuphuphuke emva kwabo.
Abantu bayangeke kuba baningi kulomsebenzi lona. Ibhizinisi ke inormal ngoba umfalo lengitena ubongasiyo ngalendlela engiyo futhi ngaleli themba likhulu nje ngoba tawuphela lo msebenzi nyalo batawuphuma bathenga kakhulu bathi bese bahamba babuyele emuva. Kepha nje inombolo solonke icathanisa vele tiyanza kakhulu.
Baholi bemimango abasebenzisane kusita kubhalisa abantu labakhubatekile ehhovisini leliphini landvunankulu. Lokhu kushiwo ngumphathi lobukela uhlangothi labakhubatekile ehhovisini la DPM Fikile Shongwe uma khuluma esontweni le 7th Day Adventist nabasukumisa lusuku lwetempilo.
Lihhovisi leliphini lamvunankulu libe ingcenye yelilanga letempilo esontweni le-7th Day Adventist Church ekwaluseni. Kuleli langa bekubanjwe inkonzo yekulekelela abantu labakhubatekile kulommango ekutfoleni lwati nelusito lwetempilo kulokunye. Lobu ke lihlangothi lalabakhubatekile ehhovisini la DPM Fikile Shongwe uvete bomcoka bekuthi lihhovisi la DPM libe nayo inombolo yebantu labakhubatekile emimangweni.
Wonke umuntu lokhubatekile siyacela lokho ukuthi abe khona amadi sonhlala kahle. Kunabo sonhlala kahle labakhona kuwo onke lema regions aseveni. Bakhona nje eshiselweni, bakhona eLubombo, bakhona kaHoho, bakhona nala kaManzini la sikhona khona kwaLuseni nje is part of Manzini ngobe kuye kube nalama interventions la endeke ukhanze ukuthi ngeke siwende ama interventions la ngiwo ngaphandle kwedata nabo sohlala kahle ngeke bakhone kwati konke bantu bangapoti siyasebenzisana nabo babebucopho siyawucela ukuthi boba bebucopho mabakhona bakhonektinzana nel-office laka lemhlonishwa DPM through bosonhlala kahle labakhona eveni.
Umcondzisi wetempilo ebandleni le-7th Day Adventist Church Kusile Dlamini uthi lolu hlelo luyaqala kwenteka kanti batawuchubeka kwenta tinhlelo letitawusita labakhubatekile kulommango.
Sibona ukuthi asese sibabambele lilanga letempilo la sitawubona khona sikhonde nabo siphindze futhi sibone netidzingo tabo nekuthi ke nabo siba mbandzakanye nemsebenzi waNkulunkulu bangasaleli ngaphandle. So ngikubuka ke ukuthi kulommango lesikuwo sithena sibuka ukuthi akhanza ukuthi baningi bantu labaneke ukukhubateka sase sitheka asendele lilanga leli.
Lihhovisi la DPM linikele ngetindvuku tekuhamba letilishumi ema-crutches, ema-wheelchair lamabili, ema-walking sticks lamabili kanye ne-white cane yinye. Libandla le-7th Adventist linikele ngekudla. Lobika nguSethabile Mamba Anambonga Dube kumathapha.
Kutemidlalo baqeqeshi bemaqembu Seed Fashion United kanye neSisonke Football Club umduduzi Shongwe Nambongeni Mamba bathi liphuzu labalitfolile emidlalweni wabo banelethemba ukuthi litawubasita ekuvikeni inkemba ngaphansi kwayo indlebe ye-MTN Premier League. Amaqembu lamabili adlale ngekulingana ngelicanza ecanzeni emidlalweni lodlalelwe ePrince of Wales eMbabane.
Ngiya appreciate le point ngihamba nalo still itangisita maybe phambili because nasobuka nje isekufuna lo umcaza sekune ngithola lo 8 points angathi ukuthi kanjani. I was hopeful ukuthi maybe laba ngoba sikhompetha nabo maybe siba miss a little bit but nje we'll fight until to the end. But nje ngicabanga ukuthi ya kubuka ngathi besiziniwe. I don't know if athi ngasibe ikhona kithi but nje ngicabanga ukuthi asikakhona maybe preparation kahle.
Ngilisita kakhulu le point le because lo bekasami ukuthi simkhanzile ngalo. Sefuna silwele kumane sifolela amanye at least sina singathola kulo lasele ama games asifole 6 points. I think utabe ngasita lo kakhulu.
Lamacembu amabili ahleli kabi kakhulu kulolu hla lendebe ye-M10 Premier League njengalokho omabili alengelwa inkemba kulomdlalo-ke abekade imisele ngekunqoba lo mdlalo kepha-ke mathuba labe khona kude lokukhonile kwa-70 kakhulu esigabeni sekuqala semidlalo nasesigabeni sesibili akukabi-ke nemehluko nakhatha lokho omabili lamacembu awakhilela amathuba lamahle kepha-ke kwababedela lothola lelo goli lapho khona-ke bogolkipa bawo amacembu babenawo umthelela lomuhle ukuthi kube bede lothola ligoli njengalokhu bebadimisele lo mdlalo-ke uphele ngelicandza ecandzeni lokusho ukuthi omabili amacembu athola liphoyinti lobekela umsakazo we-Eswatini TV temidlalo ngiphathiswe Msibi anabonke Dlamini eMbabane.
Siphetha kanjalo ndzaba tethu teSiswati sitawuya emarket sitawubuya sicubeke nehlelo.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze
being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kumula.
Nathi kufuna sente ukukhiqiza lokusebenza.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Welcome to Eswatini Lifestyle. This is your ultimate guide to the entertainment, to the lifestyle and the culture of Eswatini.
Eswatini Lifestyle.
Eswatini Lifestyle.
Eswatini Lifestyle.
From 6:30 to 7 p.m.
On Eswatini TV, Sibuko Semaswati.
On Eswatini TV, Sibuko Semaswati.
Asibenzele sinimukele, we are now joined by the Chief Police Information and Communications Officer Phindile Vilakazi lomhla ekseni kuva ukuthi impelasonto ihambe kanjani ngitipitiki igaba letibikiwe emaphoyiseni asivusele phiko ingabe impelasonto ihambe kanjani uthi ithini imibiko.
Sivusele Thombeni, sivusele nathi sonke isive sakangwane ekseni. Kungumsombuluko lomuhle sibuya kwimpelasonto nayo lesengapheli kulandzela ukuthi namhla sikulo phela liholiday. Umuntu angathi esiveni siyajumisa kakhulu umsebenzi lebeyichubeka kuto tonke tindzawo. Sibonile emasonto bekaphitsitela kakhulu. Kunemsebenzi lomkhulu loba ukhona kalobamba lapho khona sive besiphelele ngetinkani. Kute-ke impiko lekhona lesitfolile kusachujekane kusebenta konke kuhambe kahle nempahla yaso sive beyigcineke ngendlela lefanele. Lesikhuluma nje e-police station yakalobamba sinesikhwama sinyinyalo lesinelibhayibheli lesincane lesithemba ukuthi umnikati masinyane utawuvela njengalokusade ukuthi basekhona vele bazalwane khona kalobamba. Kute-ke tigigaba letisapsako naletinjani lesititfolile. Ngakulokunye-ke kuletinye tindzawo sibone kuhamba komphefumulo kwendvodza lapha esiphofaneni lekuvakala kokuthi kwafika nje umflo ongatiwa wavulela inhlavu wadubula wasishiya-ke emhlabeni. Umuntu-ke angasho ukuthi sive sicela sesiside sisibambise kulolu phenyo. Kukhona-ke lokho ukuthi nakunemuntu lohambile emhlabeni kube nekusolana lokuningi, kube ngulo asolela omunye nalomnye akhombele omunye esweni. Kugcine mhlambe kulesinye isikhathi kuphatamisa nalamaciniso mbamba lebekade awusita ukuthi kugcine kuboshwa abantu kuleyo ndzaba. Siyacela ukuthi sibe sisibambise ukuthi nakukhona labakuvako nalabakusolako bavele khona emaphoyiseni basitshele basinikete lihala. Lolunye-ke vele lihala liyadinga ukuthi usebenzise mhlambe tigaba letitsite. Siyacela ukuthi-ke vele sibike la kufanele khona singayicoci nje noma nganguphi. Singamcela-ke na-station commander wakhona esiphofaneni lekungibaba emotha nangabe kukhona lesifuna ukukuveta kuwo amaphoyisa asachubeka neliphenyo. Siyajabula-ke nekusho ukuthi kuyo yonke le mpelasonto sisete umbiko lohambene nemphefumulo kakhulu kade emgwacweni. Siyachubeka nekucela sive-ke ukuthi sichubeke sitiphathe kahle njengalokhu sitabe sibuka namhla kakhulu kade sekulanga lekugcina nje ukuthi nasekushayeleni phela sibe bantu labasobha kahle. Ema-roadblocks kachubeka-ke siyacela ukuthi abantu batinikete isikhathi basahamba i-allowance yokuthi bangatikhanzi babambeleleka kuwo ema-roadblocks. Nathi-ke simaphoyisa sisho lokhu sisabe sichubekile kuba khona kubuka kona kuphepha kwaso sive. Sifisela wonke umuntu usuku loluhle nekuphela kwayo impelasonto. Kanjalo nalaba basemahholideyini bantwana besikolo siyakhuthaza ukutiphatha kahle. Kukhona lokuthi bese bavakashela emadolobheni khaze sebeme esicumbi-ke la kufanele ukuthi sive sihambe khona. Siyacela ukuthi siniketane lelo thuba bangaze bantu benkosi bangasakhoni ukuhamba kahle. Neku-avoida-ke kuyohlala etitolo ngoba lokho ngikho bese kufaka noma silingo sekuthi bese kuyaganga. Sichubeke sitadishe, asichubeke sitiphathe kahle sifisela wonke umuntu iviki lelihle nakuleli viki siyabonga.
Kumbe ungakazivalelisi nje phiko kuva ukuthi ngabe akhona yini mhlambe ama-breakthroughs kuma-cases ama-missing persons. Yanibona ukuthi indlela vele nibaveta labo lekubikwa ukuthi balahlekile ekhasini lenu la ka-Facebook. Kumbe nje nekuxwayisa nje ukuthi vele ngabe sitiphephisa kanjani sena njani ukuthi sena njani siqiniseke sokuthi bantu baphephile kakhulu kade bamfu labadzala abalakhona ukulahleka.
Siyabonga kakhulu Dr. Sinawo lakhona ama-breakthrough. Ikhona nje nendzaba yasesipiki la besifuna khona umuntu logcina kutholakala etimbisini. Leke pha umntwana omncane loneminyaka lengu-5 lo walahleka khona lapha esipiki usengatholakali. Nalabanye-ke basekhona labasengabikwa ukuthi sebatholakele. Singacala ngakokucela sive ukuthi tihlobo tethu nangabe sesititfolile siyacela ukuthi siwathinzile amaphoyisa lesabika kuwo. Sisho ukuthi umfu sesimtfolile simthola usesimeni lesinjani ukuze kuthi le mibiko itobe siyacinywa lesuke ipublishelwe sive ukuthi siside. Nekuthi-ke siyakhuthaza ekuthenini uma ngabe umfu alahlekile noma-ke impahla yakho le-fire cards, inkomo, imbuti kwentekile yalahleka ungayi kuyofuna noma usaya kuyofuna akabe khona lophumako aye emaphoyiseni ayobika. Kuyaye kusite kakhulu lokho ukuthi lolu hala libe judane. Siyacela ukuthi abantu abende njalo nekuthi-ke vele asiticinise tindzaba kakhulu kati kubo bantfu labadzala sike saveta esiveni ukuthi lesiknothisako ukuthi ezibakhula labantu labadzala kuyenteka le ngcondvo mhlambe ingasambambisi ngendlela lejwayeleke ngayo khanze kokuthi nasekhaya nangabe bekaphumile aye somewhere akasaboni kahle ekhaya kuthi ngikuphi so uyawuthola ukuthi uyahamba-ke uyalahleka ngaleyo ndlela ugcine uthola lichwayita igangeni ugcine uyashiya emhlabeni so siyakhuthata ukuthi akube nebantfu nababa-asayinako vele ukuthi bahlale babanakile abantu labadzala nangabe kuyabonakala kokuthi asala yedvana sibe nendlela yokuthi kukhiyeke endzaweni lahlala kuyo nangabe kulikhaya kube neligede lelivalekile lelikhiyekile ukuze ukuthi angabe senje soyagoa astray kugcina sekuba yi-missing person sitawuchubeka ngalokunjalo kufuna labo lekubonakala ukuthi abakatfolakali lo ngaba ne-information singacela ashayele nayenhlabamkhosi yemaphoyisa lekungu-999 noma bo-9 nabane noma sishaye 112 nato-ke tinombolo tabo station commander sihlala sinato ku-Facebook sive senkosi singasithinza nema-landline ethu acisha khona konke amakhalenda lesinawo esiveni siyathi-ke ukuthi amakhalenda ethu vele avama kuba kuwo onke ama-ofisi singacela ukuthi sisebenzise leto tinombolo kushayela ku-station commander uma ngabe kukhona la sisibona khona ukuthi kunembiko noma kune-information lengawasita emaphoyisa siyabonga kakhulu umsakathi.
Sibonga kakhulu Phiko kusiniketa leyo mbiko nguye phindile vela kati Chief Phiko asiniketa umbiko ukuthi impela somvo ihambe kanjani sasalikhefu nasibuya sikhulumisana na head coach we-Eswatini Seals Swimming Academy.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.sz. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba-researche, bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kumula.
nathi kufuna senze ukukhicita lokusembili.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience.
Welcome to Eswatini Lifestyle. This is your ultimate guide to the entertainment, to the lifestyle and the culture of Eswatini.
Eswatini Lifestyle.
Eswatini Lifestyle.
Eswatini Lifestyle.
From 6:30 to 7 p.m.
On Eswatini TV, sibuko semaswati.
On Eswatini TV, sibuko semaswati.
Welcome back. Sikuvusele nawo losanza kusivulela besivetele ukuthi isidaba sikhulumisana na head coach we-Academy Eswatini Seals Swimming Academy. Sifuna ukukhulumisana naye nje ngema-benefits of swimming. Dokumela ukuthi itikolo ativalile abantu abesikole banesikhathi lesiningi etandleni tabo, labanye abakhanza babukela kakhulu i-TV, labanye benda ama-activities la ngakavumeleki ukuthi bawende njengekuhlala etitolo bendelo kwanaloka lofaya ikhathi nako kuganga. Kanti ke akhona lamanye ama-activities labangawenda la tawukhona ukuthi abasite physically, mentally and also emotionally. I'm joined by the head coach of the Eswatini Seals Swimming Academy, Sam. Kusivetela nje ukuthi what are the benefits of swimming. A very good morning. Asikuvusele Sam on the program. Thank you for tuning in on Kusile Breakfast Show. The World Health Organization does report that Eswatini is the third nation in SADC with the highest drowning mortality rate. What is your core mandate as an academy, as an organization?
Thank you so much, Lulu. Actually, there was a flag raised sometimes last year by the World Health Organization that we in Eswatini have the third highest mortality rate due to drowning, and as a result, the Ministry of Health had brought together all the stakeholders. And we've formed an alliance, the Eswatini Drowning Prevention Alliance. And we have raised the banner high for awareness. We've had several programs going around the school because the high rate of drowning is actually from the school going age. So we've taken up the challenge. We go around the schools to create campaign awareness on drowning. We've had drowning sensitization events. We just had one last week Saturday at the Anadil Primary School. So we sensitize the public with joining forces with the Royal Eswatini Police Service, the Ministry of Health, the Red Cross Society, Emergency Fire Service, the Swimming Association, Sports Council, the World Vision. We formed the alliance together and we partner to see how we can sensitize, teach, train on CPR, emergency actions, steps to take when such incidents arise. So basically, that is what we are doing as an alliance. As an academy, of course, I head the academy as the head coach. We facilitate swimming events just to make sure that kids are aware and they know exactly what to do when they find themselves, around water bodies.
You know, during school holidays, most kids spend their time mostly just watching TV or doing illegal activities and also other activities such as using their tablets, their iPads or computers. Why is it important for children during school holidays to take up sports such as swimming? What are the benefits of swimming?
It's very important, and thank you so much for this program, Lulu, and for bringing me on. I really appreciate this because it helps us to amplify our voice, and I really want to thank Eswatini TV for this. The holidays give a very good opportunity for parents to take action in investing into the lives of their kids positively, especially when it comes to swimming. It has a lot of benefits, especially during these holidays when, like you rightly mentioned, kids are bored and they spend their time on their phones, on their tablets, and their minds are idle this period. But when you as a parent, are forward thinking, and you are able to enroll the child in a swimming program, it gives the child the opportunity to learn the vital skills, water safety, because once a child is able to swim, the child is water safe to a very large extent. So swimming has a lot of benefits, and the major benefit is that it is a life-saving skill. It's not like every other sport. This is the only sport that actually saves lives. Swimming is important. The benefits are enormous. Health-wise, doctors recommend swimming. Swimming is a full body workout, and for children, they need a place to dissipate this energy. They need a place to release, the excitement. So swimming, it's a sport that is low impact. The injuries are minimal. It's not like any other sports. It's a very low impact sport, and it's a sport that encourages team spirit. Is a sport that boosts confidence. Is a sport that apart from boosting the confidence of the child, it also establishes a high IQ for the child. Researchers sometimes in Australia, I think about 800 of them came together, and they discovered that children who started to swim early in a class and those who were not swimming early, the children who were actually swimming early were 8 times higher, in their intelligence than those who were not doing swimming lessons. So swimming is important even in stimulating, the child's IQ in concentration, because when you swim, it's a whole body workout. It coordinates the motor skills. All the muscles are working together. The heartbeat, the lungs, the breathing. So the muscles, all the muscles are at work. All the muscles, the skeletal muscles, all of them are at work. So for a child, this is very important. It helps them to develop their motor skills properly, and swimming. Doctors recommend it's good for children, for everyone actually. If you have, health issues, cardiovascular issues, you have asthma. Swimming is very good for all this. So these holidays, I believe, is one of the best things that a parent can do, is to engage the child, in swimming activities. So swimming has enormous benefits for kids.
So let's talk about safety. Some parents may be worried or concerned about their children's safety. How safe is this sport really?
Swimming is a very safe sport. Very, very safe sport. Like I mentioned before, it's a low impact sport. The fear any parent will have basically for swimming is drowning. And that's why I had said earlier that parents must enroll their children, in drowning in swimming programs, because swimming programs give the child the vital skills. I'm happy that many schools now, unlike what it used to be before, and this another thing parents should do when getting their children to school. They should look at schools that offer some of these sports, especially swimming, and it should help them to make a proper decision. And the owners of schools, head teachers, we should take swimming very importantly. You will not believe, last year, before the middle of before, we've not gotten the analysis for this year yet, but before the middle of last year, before the middle of last year, we already lost 25 souls to drowning in Eswatini. That's too much. It's way too high. It's way too high. We already lost 25 before the middle of last year. So these holidays, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for children to go swimming and to learn swimming, and it is safe in the sense that it's a very low impact sport. What you need to do is to ensure that they are around adults. They are around, of course, when you enroll them in the swimming program, you should know you're enrolling them, with professionals, those, not just anybody. The Swimming Association is doing a great work in ensuring that not just anybody is doing swimming programs. So it's a very, very safe sport. Swimming is very, very safe. It's a very safe sport. You don't have injuries, you don't have accidents, you don't bump each other, you don't break muscles, you don't break bones. So yeah, it's a very safe sport.
All right. Just lastly, before I let you go, how long does it take for one to learn how to swim? Are these few weeks enough for children to learn how to swim?
Absolutely. The kids are going to be away for like a month. So a month is it's enough time for a child to have vital water safety skills. Anyways, having said that, this is not a rule because kids are not the same. You have kids that are coming, into the water experience and the water bodies with phobia. Like we've had kids that, for more than 4 or 5 sessions, they never wanted to put their feet even in the water. They just wanted to watch. So it's not the same for everyone. You have the kids that are very excited. You have the autistic kids, so there's no straight rule to say within this period of time, this child has to know how to swim. Some kids also come into the water, develop the cognitive skills to utilize their hands properly, to utilize their...
All right, we seem to have lost head coach there. That was the head coach of the Eswatini Sills Swim Academy, encouraging parents to enroll their children for swimming programs this school holidays. As he just said, there are a lot of benefits, physical, emotional, mental benefits if you take up swimming as a sport. We go for an ad break. Stay with us.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.sz.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Let's take a look at international news. On Thursday, April 17th, 2025, a series of avalanches struck the French Alps following an intense spring snowstorm, resulting in the death of a 27-year-old British man at the Val Thorens ski resort. Authorities closed the resort and issued avalanche warnings across the region, advising residents and visitors to stay indoors due to the high risk of further slides.
Plows struggled against a snowfall, finding it difficult to keep up with the accumulation, while blocked pathways made walking difficult. These were the scenes on Thursday as more than a meter of snow fell in just a couple of hours in Savoie. In the ski resorts of Val Thorens and Tignes, local officials issued stay-at-home orders during the storm. Thousands of residents and tourists suddenly found themselves confined to their hotel lobbies or apartments.
All the roads are closed, everything is closed. It's been a long time since we've been told to stay inside.
The snowstorm was so intense that the highest avalanche level, 5 out of 5, was issued for most of the ski resorts in the area. A woman caught in the storm was rescued at the entrance to the Val Thorens resort.
The road was closed and a pedestrian was caught in an avalanche coming from higher up. We aren't sure of the exact circumstances.
After the storm passed, residents were once again allowed to go outdoors, but officials asked them to stay near their homes.
Due to the extraordinary events on April 17th, residents have been confined to the village center.
Forecasters warn the risk of avalanches remains high despite better weather.
We have avalanches moving up to 2 meters of snow, so when it gets bigger, it's causing avalanches of fresh snow, triggered by the additional snowfall from the storm.
Officials are urging those who do go out to be extra vigilant and stay on cleared pathways.
At least 11 people, including 3 children, were killed in New Delhi on April 19th after a residential building collapsed on the outskirts of the Indian capital.
In the early hours of Saturday morning, this residential building in Delhi came crashing down, with terrible consequences for the over 20 people believed to be inside.
My sister sustained injuries because of this incident. She had a family of 5 members. Both her sons, my nephews, have died.
Rescue workers rushed to the scene to pull survivors from the wreckage. The cause of the accident is unclear, but building collapses are common in India, where unsafe, illegal housing is widespread. Illegal structures are often home to migrants who come to urban areas in search of work, only to be faced with a drastic shortage of affordable housing. Delhi Minister Kapil Mishra blamed the municipal government, controlled by an opposition party, for allowing such dangerous living conditions in the city. His post on X reads, "I visited the site of the incident in Mustafabad. Delhi is flooded with such illegal constructions. The commissioner has been instructed to vacate nearby unsafe buildings. No responsible officer will be spared." Indian President Narendra Modi also expressed his condolences for the victims, saying he was saddened by the loss of lives.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky accused Russia on April 20th of creating a false appearance of honoring an Easter ceasefire, saying Moscow continued to launch attacks overnight after Russian President Vladimir Putin announced a unilateral temporary truce in Ukraine.
Hours after announcing the truce, Russian President Vladimir Putin stands in Moscow's main church for an Easter service. A service where the Patriarch Kirill called for lasting peace in the historical Rus, which state news agencies say is a reference to the medieval territory made up of what's now Ukraine, Belarus and Russia. In a surprise move, Putin declared a temporary halt to fighting from 6 p.m. Saturday to midnight Sunday, citing humanitarian considerations. Not long after that order, air raid sirens rang out across Kyiv. Zelensky posting to social media Sunday morning that Russian forces had shelled Ukrainian positions 59 times and started 5 assaults since the truce, adding Russia must fully comply with the conditions of the ceasefire. Zelensky is calling for an extension of the truce, but in Kharkiv, locals are hesitant Putin will comply with this pause, let alone a longer one.
He's just lying. You can't trust people like this all over the world. Trump is the only one who believes him.
Do not believe Russia. We live here permanently and have already realized that Russia cannot be trusted.
The timing of the temporary truce has also sparked some questions. Morale appears to be high, with Russian troops seen celebrating Easter on the front line. A day after Moscow's defense ministry announced forces had pushed Ukrainian troops from one of their last remaining footholds in Russia's Kursk region.
Ukraine and the U.S. signed a memorandum of intent on Thursday to advance a deal granting Washington access to Kyiv's natural resources and critical minerals, Ukraine said. The pact aims to foster an economic partnership and create a reconstruction fund, Deputy Prime Minister said.
After months of delays, a minerals deal is closer than ever. On Thursday, Ukraine said talks with the U.S. delivered good results. Just hours later, the two sides signed a so-called Memorandum of Intent, a first step toward a final agreement. The deal would give the U.S. access to Ukraine's mineral wealth in return for billions in military aid. Ukraine, for its part, wants strong security guarantees. But the process has been shaky. A February signing fell through under chaotic circumstances. Since then, Ukraine said that the terms have constantly changed. Media reports said the U.S. now has changed repayment demands from $300 to $100 billion. Meanwhile, the Trump administration continued to face accusations of echoing Putin, creating unease among Ukraine officials. Just days ago, the U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff conveyed Moscow's proposal for a peace in exchange for 5 Ukrainian regions.
I believe that Mr. Witkoff has taken on the strategy of the Russian side. I think it is very dangerous.
Ukraine said it will not discuss territorial agreements before a ceasefire, a truce they want under U.S. security guarantees. But so far it's not clear how the minerals deal would ensure Ukraine's security.
President Donald Trump on April 18 said negotiations between Ukraine and Russia are coming to a head and insisted that neither side is playing him in his push to end the grinding war. Trump spoke shortly after Secretary of State Marco Rubio warned that the U.S. may move on from trying to secure a Russia-Ukraine peace deal if there is no progress in the coming days.
He's been pressing both Moscow and Kyiv for a truce. But so far, Donald Trump has failed in his bid to secure a ceasefire in the Ukraine war. On Friday, the U.S. president reiterated that he wanted to clinch a deal quickly, but said that the U.S. could ditch brokering further talks unless progress is made soon.
Thank you very much. No specific number of days, but quickly. We want to get it done. If for some reason one of the two parties makes it very difficult, we're just going to say you're foolish, you're fools, you're horrible people, and we're going to just take a pass. But hopefully we won't have to do that.
His remarks came hours after U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio warned that the U.S. could pull the plug on peace deal negotiations.
We'll be ready to help whenever you're ready to have peace, but we're not going to continue with this endeavor for weeks and months on end. So we need to determine very quickly now, and I'm talking about in a matter of days, whether or not this is doable over the next few weeks. If it is, we're in. If it's not, then we have other priorities to focus on as well.
Meanwhile, over in Rome, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance seemed more positive about the situation.
So the negotiations, I won't prejudge them, but we do feel optimistic that we can hopefully bring this war, this very brutal war, to a close.
It comes as Russia announced that its 30-day pause on striking Ukrainian energy sites had expired. Kyiv and Moscow had agreed last month to a US-brokered moratorium on strikes against energy infrastructure, but both sides have since accused each other of breaking it.
Israeli strikes in Gaza have killed more than 90 people in 48 hours. Gaza's health ministry said on April 19 that Israeli troops increased their attacks to pressure Hamas to release remaining hostages and disarm.
Families in mourning after Israeli airstrikes targeted Gaza over the weekend.
There are no safe places. You spend the night and wake up in worry. Everywhere around us is hit. There's not a single member of the resistance here. But the occupation army, with the support from the United States, Europe, the UN as well, destroys and kills civilians, those children, those innocent people, unjustly.
Hospital workers in Khan Yunis said several were killed in the Al-Mawasi camp in the south of Gaza. Hundreds of thousands of displaced people are currently living in the area, which Israel has designated as a humanitarian zone.
They claim there are humanitarian zones, but actually there are none in Gaza. Wherever you go, there are strikes in Al-Mawasi, every single minute. What did the children do wrong?
After ceasefire talks with Hamas stalled in March, Israel resumed its maximum pressure offensive in Gaza and vowed to intensify its attacks on the armed group. The Israeli army announced one of its soldiers was killed on Saturday, its first fatality since the collapse of the talks. It also said 3 others were wounded in combat. Meanwhile, the future for the dozens of hostages held in the enclave remains uncertain. In a televised interview, the spokesman for Israel's Prime Minister, Omer Dostri, said it will be impossible to return all of the country's hostages. A statement which contrasts with the long-standing official position of the Israeli government that its war with Hamas aims to free all of Israel's hostages.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced last month that his government had unanimously approved the dismissal of Shin Bet chief Ronen Bar, citing a lack of trust and requiring him to step down by April 10th.
Israelis took to the streets last month criticizing Netanyahu's government after the prime minister announced plans to dismiss Ronen Bar, the head of the Shin Bet domestic security agency. Saying he no longer had confidence in Bar, Netanyahu ordered the security chief to leave his post by April 10th.
Due to an ongoing lack of trust, I have decided to bring a proposal to the government to end the tenure of the head of the Shin Bet security service.
Bar, who has led Shin Bet since 2021, has long butted heads with Netanyahu. Appointed by the previous government, Bar was a vocal critic of the prime minister's attempt to reform Israel's judiciary system and has publicly pushed back against far-right politicians. Tensions came to a head last month when Bar implicated Netanyahu's government in a report on the October 7th Hamas attack and opened a corruption probe investigating whether Netanyahu's associates and advisors were paid to promote Qatari interests within the Israeli government. Opposition groups were quick to react with a petition to the Supreme Court, claiming that Bar's firing is politically motivated.
In Israel, we appealed today to the Supreme Court in order to stop Ronen Bar's dismissal process. We're saying that firing Ronen Bar today is against the law because of Netanyahu's conflict of interest, and we're expecting the Supreme Court to stop this process at once.
In a tense hearing interrupted by protesters, the Supreme Court froze Bar's dismissal until they reach a decision after Passover, giving the court an additional 10 days of deliberations.
U.S. strikes on a Yemeni fuel port killed at least 70 people, who the rebels said on April 18th, and the deadliest attack of Washington's 15-month campaign against the Iran-backed group.
American bombers take off over the Red Sea with missiles on full display, in videos posted on X by the U.S. Central Command Friday. The post follows a U.S. airstrike which resulted in a fiery explosion of the Ras Issa fuel port, though it is unclear when the videos were filmed. The American Defense Force included the hashtag Houthis are terrorists in their post. According to Houthi sources, dozens were killed in the attack on the Ras Issa port, making it the most deadly American strike on Yemen since Donald Trump's return to the White House. Protests have broken out across Yemen in response to the near-daily bombing that has damaged civilian infrastructure and caused widespread casualties.
The United States initially claimed its strikes were not aimed at civilians or the people in Yemen, but only at the Houthi group and the military targets. Then the United States blatantly attacked a civilian port, which exposed its true intention.
Soon after the start of the Israel-Hamas war, the Iran-aligned Houthi militant group started attacking international shipping vessels and targeting Israel. The Trump administration has said they will not let up their military offensive until the Houthis halt attacks on ships in the Red Sea.
The United States and Iran made progress in a second round of high-stakes talks on Tehran's nuclear program on April 19th and agreed to meet again next week, both sides said.
Mediated discussions on Iran's nuclear program with the U.S. wrapped up after 4 hours of intense deliberation. Iran wants sanctions lifted in return for oversight on its facilities. It's the second round of discussions after talks between the two sides started on April 12th. Tehran says they are making progress.
It was a good meeting, and I can say that the negotiations are moving forward. This time, we managed to reach a better understanding on a series of principles and goals.
Negotiators will meet again in Oman next week for a third round of talks. It's a major development since the U.S. unilaterally withdrew from an international agreement on Iran's nuclear program during Donald Trump's first term. Energy experts say Tehran has over 200 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium, but it insists its nuclear program is for civilian use. Washington fears Iran wants to make nuclear weapons. Trump has even threatened to bomb the country if it doesn't reach a deal.
If these negotiations fall apart, then there will be military strikes against Iranian nuclear sites and possibly some other infrastructure on Iran, on Iranian soil. Water, electricity, oil facilities, things of those natures, which the Iranian economy seriously cannot afford to have.
The United States has demanded a complete dismantling of Iran's nuclear program, but Tehran wants to stand firm, saying it will only allow supervision of its nuclear activities in return for sanctions relief.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday launched a series of attacks against Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, accusing the central bank chief of playing politics by not cutting interest rates, asserting he had the power to evict Powell from his job real fast and looking forward to the day when Powell was gone.
Too late and always wrong. That's how President Trump characterized the head of the U.S. Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell. The U.S. president, unhappy with Powell, threatened to fire him.
Oh, if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
Trump criticized the Fed's chair for not cutting the U.S. interest rate, which is at more than 4%, unlike the European Central Bank, which cut theirs.
We have a Federal Reserve chairman that is playing politics, somebody that I've never been very fond of, actually. But he's playing politics. Interest rates should be down now. They should be coming down. In Europe, as you know, they reduced them, I guess, 7 times.
On Wednesday, Jerome Powell suggested that it was Trump's tariffs which were causing economic uncertainty and preventing the Federal Reserve from lowering the rate.
The administration is, as I mentioned in my remarks, is implementing significant policy changes, and particularly trade now is the focus. And the effects of that are likely to move us away from our goals. So unemployment is likely to go up as the economy slows in all likelihood, and inflation is likely to go up as tariffs find their way.
But can Donald Trump put an early end to Powell's mandate like he says he can? Many legal experts believe this would be difficult. The institution is supposed to be independent of the U.S. administration. But because a court hasn't ruled on the matter before, no one can say for certain what would happen. And President Trump has been defying many political norms since returning to office in January. As for Powell, he said he would complete his term until 2026 and would not resign if asked to do so by the president.
The U.S. Supreme Court on April 19th paused the Trump administration's deportation of alleged Venezuelan gang members under an 18th century law.
The U.S. Supreme Court paused President Donald Trump's efforts to deport one more group of alleged Venezuelan gang members.
The government is directed not to remove any member of the putative class of detainees from the United States until further order of this court.
Last month, the U.S. president invoked the 18th century Alien Enemies Act that allows him to deport Venezuelan migrants accused of belonging to gang groups to a maximum security prison in El Salvador. The latest escalation is centered on men held at a detention facility in Texas. Their lawyers have asked the U.S. Supreme Court to block any imminent deportations. Earlier, a federal judge said that Donald Trump could face criminal contempt charges over the willful disregard of the court orders.
This contempt proceeding will not resolve the broader questions posed by the Trump administration's invocation, blatantly illegal, I should say, invocation of the Alien Enemies Act to deport summarily a whole group of people alleged to be members of a Venezuelan gang that nobody ever heard of until President Trump invoked this statute. This statute was designed for wartime.
The case raises questions about the Trump administration's adherence to limits set by the Supreme Court, signaling a potential clash and a possible full-blown crisis between the two branches of government.
Opponents of President Donald Trump's administration took to the streets of communities, large and small, across the U.S., decrying what they see as threats to the nation's democratic deals.
Trump must go now and protect our Constitution were among the slogans splashed across placards at this demonstration in Washington, D.C. Crowds took to the streets denouncing US President Donald Trump and his administration's policies.
If you folks think here today that you're safe, they're just coming for the weak, the powerless, the students, the immigrants. They're not. They're coming for anybody who stands up against them.
Free Kilmar now! Some in the crowd chanted in solidarity with migrants whom the Trump administration has deported, including Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Judges all the way up to the US Supreme Court have ruled that his deportation from the US to El Salvador last month was wrongful. Trump's administration has also detained scores of foreign students and threatened to halt federal funding to universities over diversity and inclusion programs. A move that has concerned this demonstrator over in Miami.
My family members from different countries work so hard to come here, and my students pay a lot of money and work hard to come here too, and they shouldn't feel unsafe on campus.
Trump and his billionaire ally Elon Musk have fired more than 200,000 workers from the federal government and have sought to dismantle various agencies. This demonstrator in Chicago accuses the administration of widening the gap between the rich and those who are less privileged.
We've got this oligarch stripping all of our society's elements that are for the people.
Protests were also held in Houston and New York, among dozens of other locations. Saturday's demonstrations marked the second day of nationwide protests since Trump took office.
President Donald Trump's administration said on Friday it sought Harvard University's records on foreign funding going back a decade and on some foreign ties in the government's latest escalation against the educational institution.
Students and teachers rally in the face of the Trump administration.
This is what democracy looks like.
Hundreds have been protesting across several American cities against budget cuts. The latest institution in the crosshairs, Harvard University, which stood up against a sweeping set of demands on Monday, including banning all diversity, equity and inclusion programs.
Across the USA!
It set the stage for a showdown between the US government and some of the country's most prestigious institutions.
We wanted to show that Harvard can stand together, united, saying we're not going to cave to demands that we turn in some international student names so that they can be have their visas revoked without a just cause, and they can be deported back to their home countries.
The White House has swiftly retaliated, announcing it would freeze more than $2 billion in multi-year grants and contracts with Harvard. Trump has also threatened to stop the university from enrolling international students.
I think Harvard's a disgrace. I think what they did was a disgrace.
It's part of an ongoing government review of various universities over allegations of anti-Semitism following the handling of pro-Palestinian student protests, like the ones that rocked the campuses of Columbia and Berkeley last year. But Harvard remains defiant, and others are determined to push back too.
We've seen Harvard fighting back, MIT, Stanford is stepping up. I think the tide is starting to turn, and we're seeing positive signs that people aren't going to accept this attack on higher ed.
Columbia University, on the other hand, has caved to government demands in order to restore $400 million in federal funding pulled last month.
Serbia's parliament elected a new government on Wednesday, led by a political novice, after months of student-led anti-corruption protests brought down the previous administration. The Balkan nation has been mired in political turmoil since former Prime Minister Milos Vučić and other senior officials resigned in January amid marathon protests.
Serbia's new prime minister is officially sworn in before parliament in Belgrade. 61-year-old Đuro Matsut is a doctor and academic with no prior political experience. Handpicked by President Aleksandar Vučić, Matsut is supposed to get the country back on track after months of protests. But with two-thirds of the ministers coming from the previous government, the new cabinet is filled with old faces. Meanwhile, protests across Serbia continue.
Look at all these people. We are so many. We can't stop this movement now.
We have to keep up the pressure. I'm glad we've started this protest, which is raising awareness in our country. Serbian people are waking up, resisting, and getting the strength to take to the streets. Nationwide protests were sparked after the collapse of a railway station roof in Novi Sad in early November. 16 people were killed, 14 of them instantly. Launched and led by students, protesters blamed the deaths on widespread corruption and inadequate oversight of construction projects. Protesters are urging accountability and the overhaul of Serbia's institutions.
Wine is one of the top exports of South Africa. However, the market could be severely impacted by the tariffs imposed by Donald Trump as the country is seeking opportunities elsewhere, particularly turning towards China.
It's become one of the country's top exports in recent years, including to the U.S., and could be hit hard by Donald Trump's new tariffs. As South Africa's wine industry continues to assess the impact of increased levies imposed by Washington, producers have begun to look for opportunities elsewhere and are now eyeing the Chinese market.
I think the African countries almost have to think of what I would call the coalition of the wounded, looking into various countries and saying who has been badly affected by the U.S. and how can they open up the room for engagement on that.
In response to Trump's trade war, China recently imposed a whopping 154% tariff on American wines, threatening to wipe out a trade partnership worth nearly $50 million. South African wine producers are now hoping to fill that void, especially as their own exports to the U.S. are set to drop significantly in the coming years. And they may have the ideal products that's already suited to the taste of Chinese customers.
The varieties that are grown in South Africa are more or less identical to the varieties that are available from California. And therefore we are able to supply exactly the same styles, cultivars, and the kind of wines that we know have appeal in the Chinese market.
South Africa and China have in recent years heavily strengthened economic ties, bringing their annual trade volume from $1.3 billion in 2000 to over $30 billion in 2023, a partnership that both countries appear eager to boost further amid the current economic uncertainty.
In a potential landmark discovery, scientists using the James Webb Space Telescope have obtained what they call the strongest signs yet of possible life beyond our solar system, detecting in an alien planet's atmosphere the chemical fingerprints of gases that on Earth are produced only by biological processes.
A potential breakthrough in the search for alien life.
We have found evidence for possible biological activity on an exoplanet.
Using the James Webb Space Telescope, scientists at Cambridge University have detected signs of molecules which on Earth are only generated by living organisms such as marine algae. They discovered the chemical signatures of dimethyl sulfide and dimethyl disulfide on planet K2-18b, which is outside our solar system, orbiting a red dwarf star some 124 light-years away. The telescope is powerful enough to analyze the chemical composition of the planet's atmosphere from the light that passes from the star it orbits. Previous observations suggest the planet's atmosphere is hydrogen-rich and home to a vast ocean deeper than any on our planet.
Currently, the only scenario that explains all the observations is one where it's a Haitian world that is teeming with life. And what is a Haitian world? It's an ocean-covered surface with a thin hydrogen-rich atmosphere. And the ocean being habitable.
But the team stressed more data is needed to confirm these results, and the scientists stopped short of declaring the discovery of extraterrestrial life. Now, researchers are examining if there are ways the chemicals DMS and DMDS can be produced in the lab from non-living means. Still, the implications of such a discovery could be huge, according to the team's lead astrophysicist. He believes just 16 to 24 more hours of the Webb telescope's time will confirm their findings, which could happen in the next few years.
A half marathon in Beijing pitted 21 humanoid robots against flesh and blood runners on April 19th, showcasing Chinese manufacturers' growing prowess in robotics.
As runners line up in their race day best, one of these joggers is not like the others. Supporters in Beijing gathered Saturday to see off humanoid robots in a first-of-its-kind half marathon. These technological trailblazers shared the course with human runners who have come from across China to take part in the race.
I joined the humanoid robot marathon because I felt this is a global first. I flew here from Wuhan just to experience the atmosphere firsthand. I wanted to feel it myself.
Over the past week, robots and their engineering teams have arrived at the Beijing E-City, where they have made final preparations for race day in a specialized training area. Participants and organizers say they are excited about using new robotics technologies for real-world applications, and that the half marathon is an important step to getting humanoid robots on the market.
The marathon helps push humanoid robots one step closer towards industrialization. Getting onto the racetrack might seem like a small step for humans, but it's a giant leap for humanoid robots.
The first robot to complete the course was Tiangong, developed by the Beijing Humanoid Robot Innovation Center, and finishing with a time of 2 hours, 40 minutes, and 42 seconds. In addition to race time, robots competed for awards measuring endurance, popularity, gait, and innovative form.
That marks the end of our international news. Thank you for staying with us. We go for an ad break. We continue with the show after.
The influenza virus is smart. It has many strains. It keeps changing to overcome immunity, and it jumps species. It exists in every country, and every year, hundreds of thousands of people die because of seasonal influenza. How do experts and scientists keep ahead of this virus? We are talking today to Dr. Shoshana Golden about how experts in public health scientists keep us safe and protected from this virus.
Ismita, you're right. The influenza virus is complex and it's always changing. Our best tool to protect against severe influenza illness and death is the vaccine. So what this means is that we are always in a race between the influenza virus and keeping our vaccine up to date. Over the last 70 years, we've developed a sophisticated network to allow us to keep up with the virus's evolution. The Global Influenza Surveillance and Response System is a network of more than 150 laboratories in 130 countries around the world. These laboratories are collecting influenza virus samples, they're analyzing what strains of influenza are circulating, and they share that information back with WHO. Twice a year, WHO convenes global experts to analyze this data and determine what influenza strains are predominantly circulating and should be included in the next influenza vaccine.
Shoshana, how does this network protect us?
This network protects you by making sure that the influenza vaccine is as up-to-date as possible. It also helps us to understand if there are new influenza viruses that are emerging. This network has been an effective global collaboration for more than 70 years.
We're talking about seasonal influenza, right? So people could say, well, it's a common cold, you'll get over it. How serious can seasonal influenza be, and who should be vaccinated?
Seasonal influenza is serious. It causes up to 5 million hospitalizations each year and is estimated to cause 650,000 respiratory-derived deaths alone. That's quite a significant global health burden. The people who should be vaccinated to protect themselves against this virus are the people who are most likely to get severe disease or die from an influenza complication. These include people like your elderly parents, so older adults, pregnant women, people with chronic conditions. They might have underlying heart issues, lung issues, they could have diabetes, obesity, or have an immune system that's compromised because of a virus such as HIV or cancer. WHO does also recommend that health workers be vaccinated against influenza each year because they are exposed to so much influenza through their workplace.
So, is this vaccine safe?
The influenza vaccine is very safe. It's been used for more than 70 years around the world. Influenza vaccines can be used by people aged 6 months and older, and they should be taken annually. What I think is a very fun fact is that influenza vaccines are one of the most commonly used vaccines around the world, with nearly 1 billion doses used each year.
So, it's flu season here, and I missed my vaccination. Is it too late for me now?
It's not too late to get vaccinated. The season for influenza lasts several months. While we do recommend that you get vaccinated as early in the season as possible to protect yourself throughout the full duration, you could be vaccinated now and protect yourself from the peak. What's important to remember is that it does take about 2 weeks for the influenza vaccine to protect you, for you to develop that full immunity to influenza. So it's better to get vaccinated now and not wait any longer. When you go off to get vaccinated, if you're eligible, you could also get influenza and COVID-19 vaccination in your same visit.
So, for our audiences who may be watching from different parts of the world, whenever their flu season is, how can they protect themselves?
There are several ways you can protect yourself from seasonal influenza. Washing your hands regularly, staying in well-ventilated areas, and if you're medically vulnerable, so if you are a member of one of those high-risk groups, you may want to consider wearing a mask if you're likely to be exposed to influenza, such as in a crowded setting. But it's important to remember that our best tool to protect against severe influenza and death is actually the vaccine. Getting vaccinated every year can help to keep you safe. Think about it like an umbrella. An umbrella may not keep you completely dry, but it will make sure that you and your loved ones standing close to you are not drenched in the rain. The seasonal influenza vaccine works in a very similar way. By taking the seasonal influenza vaccine, you protect yourself from severe illness and death. It may be possible that you still get a case of influenza, but it will be a mild case rather than a severe one.
Thank you, Shoshana. That was Science in 5 today. Until next time, then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stick with science.
Eswatini TV has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Eswatini Communications Commission. We are committed to reporting news that is accurate, comment that is fair, and programming that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. For any complaints of our programming, please contact us on 2411-9600 or email info@eswatinitv.co.za. You can also contact the Eswatini Communications Commission on 2406-7000 or write a letter to ECCOM on PO Box 7811 Mbabane. Email address is info@ecom.org.za.
Kude lesinye isikhathi ngaphandle kwalesi.
Aba research bafunze.
Being risky means ukuthi nalokuwa kwayo kulula.
Nathi kufuna senze ukukhicita lokusendile.
Welcome back to the program. Let's look at now this briefing by Hannah Sewa Tete, Special Representative of the Secretary General for Libya and the head of UNSMIL of the situation in Libya.
La parole est à vous.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Mr. President, distinguished members of the Security Council, thank you for your support since my appointment as the Special Representative of the Secretary General for Libya. Your backing enables UNSMIL to effectively implement its mandate. Since my arrival in February this year, I have engaged in extensive consultations with Libyans from all walks of life: political, military, security, judicial actors, oversight institutions, political parties, civil society, women's leaders, and also the diplomatic community. Their insights and their perspectives on Libya's current state of affairs have been invaluable. I have heard diverse opinions. Most Libyan leaders call for an inclusive political process and note the urgent need to end unilateral actions, to unify institutions and restore stability. Some believe a new unified government is the only solution, while others argue that it will prolong the nearly 15-year transition period. This school of thought stresses the importance of strengthening existing institutions, noting that establishing a transitional government has not addressed Libya's fundamental challenges. All parties agree on holding elections, but there are differing views on whether a constitutional framework should precede general elections. Political will for compromise is crucial to develop a consensual roadmap, resolving Libya's political crisis and completing the transition. Elections must be integrated into a comprehensive political framework, promoting state building by unifying and strengthening institutions. Mr. President, UNSMIL is supporting the work of the Advisory Committee to develop options for addressing contentious electoral issues. The committee held sessions in Benghazi and Tripoli, including with the 6+6 Committee and the High National Elections Commission, to discuss these challenges. The committee is finalizing its deliberations and is expected to submit its report proposing options on the way forward by the month end, barring any delays. I would like to express my thanks to the committee for their commitment towards this important endeavor. UNSMIL will assess the options and use them as a foundation for forging consensus on the next steps of a Libyan-led and owned political process. In parallel, I have been engaged in consultation with leaders, political parties, and civil society actors on the subsequent phase of the process, and I intend to maintain an inclusive stakeholder approach, ensuring that any outcome is not only Libyan-owned, but also enjoys broader Libyan support. Given the increasingly frequent recurring crisis, I intend to act with urgency while exercising caution to preserve stability. Mr. President, Libya's political crisis persists due to competition for economic resources. Fragmented institutions, unilateral actions which deepen divisions, and lack of a unified budget exacerbates the situation, causing macroeconomic instability characterized by foreign exchange deficits, inflation, and currency depreciation. In parallel to the work of the Advisory Committee, UNSMIL has been engaging economic experts to identify reforms for financial management and sustainability. We will continue consultations to foster progress and are ready to support the key political stakeholders to agree on a unified budget to prevent a looming crisis. Maintaining the independence of key oversight institutions is crucial, and they must be safeguarded by political actors. This includes the National Audit Bureau. Mr. President, appointments and removals of the leaders of these institutions must adhere to the provisions of the Libyan political agreement. The discontinuation of the National Oil Corporation's crude oil for fuel transactions from the 1st of March is a positive development that promotes greater transparency in oil sales. We encourage the government to ensure timely funding of fuel imports based on domestic demand. Given the mutual accusations following the devaluation of the dinar last week by the central bank, several Libyan stakeholders have suggested conducting an audit of the key Libyan state institutions by one of the top 5 international audit companies. We think this would provide clarity on the management of public finances and help to address the lapses and shortcomings of these institutions. Mr. President, the 2020 ceasefire agreement is largely holding, but the security situation remains volatile. Amid continued military buildup and hostile competition over territorial control, especially among Western armed groups, recent armed mobilization in and around Tripoli have renewed concerns about a potential outbreak of violence in the capital. In the southern region, the ongoing restructuring and consolidation of control of the Libyan National Army forces continues to fuel tensions with local stakeholders and resulted in heavy fighting and loss of lives in Quatrun. The situation will remain fragile until there is political will to unify security and military forces under a shared vision. To enhance communication and information sharing with UNSMIL's facilitation, the security and military authorities from eastern and western Libya have established joint border security centers in Tripoli and soon will do so in Benghazi. These centers aim to enhance communication and information sharing across the country. Mr. President, the support of regional and international partners is crucial to the success of any political agreement. In March, I visited Algeria, Egypt, Tunisia, and Turkey to highlight UNSMIL's efforts to strengthen its political engagement and provide an update on UNSMIL's support to the Advisory Committee. I emphasized the risks of maintaining the status quo to Libya's unity and regional stability and welcomed the assessments and views of how to overcome the political impasse. As I continue these engagements, I'm exploring options to enhance the effectiveness and inclusivity of existing coordination mechanisms at the regional and international levels to build the necessary support to advance the political process. Mr. President, one of the tragic consequences of Libya's divided institutions is the vacuum in which armed actors perpetrate human rights violations with impunity. The recent surge in xenophobic and racist hate speech has been alarming, as it incites violence against migrants, asylum seekers, refugees, and humanitarian organizations providing life-saving support, portraying migrants as security threats. This has sparked demonstrations, mass arrests, and a fatal shooting. Activities of some humanitarian organizations officially registered in Libya were suspended and their staff interrogated, obstructing the provision of life-saving support. And so far, 3 people have died consequently. The targeting of humanitarian organizations, migrants, asylum seekers, and refugees must stop. We acknowledge the recent discussions between the government and the UN to address the situation and encourage all political actors to adopt a more comprehensive approach to address the trafficking of migrants and secure the humanitarian space by ensuring safe and unhindered access by UN agencies and their partner organizations. Mr. President, arbitrary detention continues to be prevalent in Libya, including targeting legal professionals and political opponents. While recent releases in eastern and western Libya are a positive development, hundreds of individuals still languish in illegal detention. I strongly urge the authorities to ensure that arrests are conducted in accordance with the law and those deprived of their liberty are afforded their due process rights and fair trial. Furthermore, I emphasize the urgent need to release all individuals arbitrarily detained without delay. Women in Libya face significant challenges and violence without adequate social or legal protection. In response to this concern, Libyan experts conducted extensive consultations to develop a draft law on the protection of women against violence. This comprehensive law, which addresses protection gaps and aligns with international standards, was endorsed by members of the House of Representatives in November 2023 and cleared by the Legislative Committee in January 2024. I would urge the House of Representatives to expedite the adoption of this law without further delay. As the national reconciliation process has become politicized, victims' long-standing calls for truth, justice, and reparations remain elusive. I reiterate UNSMIL's commitment to collaborating with all Libyan stakeholders and the African Union to support a rights-based, victim-centered, and inclusive reconciliation process. Mr. President, regarding elections, the second phase of local elections in 62 municipalities, including Tripoli, Benghazi, and Sabah, will be taking place and voter registration concluded on the 15th of April. Preliminary figures indicate that over 570,000 voters registered, of which 31% are women. These elections are crucial for establishing democratic governance from the grassroots level. Overall, the first phase of municipal elections was successful. However, due to competing spheres of influence in the absence of a unified government, in a few municipalities, voting results were not respected, and winning candidates were replaced by de facto authorities, as occurred in Harawa. In other cases, municipal boundaries are being changed during the electoral process, or announcements of results is pending due to allegations of interference. Disputes regarding election outcomes should be resolved through the existing legal frameworks, respecting the will of voters ahead of the next round of voting. And this process should be used to strengthen institutional readiness for national elections. At the national level, the dispute over the election of the High Council of State presidency remains unresolved, weakening the institutions, and I urge the members to find a compromise solution. Mr. President, every day ordinary Libyans face recurring crises, whether economic, security, or political. The protracted institutional and political divisions, coupled with harmful unilateral actions, and the struggle for control of resources by a privileged few, hold the aspirations and needs of the Libyan people captive. Overspending of Libya's vast resources in the absence of an agreed national budget could lead to an economic collapse if not urgently addressed. This is despite the fact that the country's resources could provide adequately for the safety, security, and well-being of its citizens. UNSMIL's objective is to support the Libyan people to end successive transitions and establish peace, stability, and good governance by, among other things, ensuring the unification of Libya's institutions and holding inclusive national elections. While member states have diverse interests in Libya, the international community must come together to collaborate on a unified plan to support a democratic state that addresses the Libyan people's fundamental needs and aspirations, fosters economic growth, and equitable development. Inaction will be more detrimental than the cost of change. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Je remercie Madame la représentante spéciale du secrétaire général pour la Libye et puisque c'était son
That is the end of our Crisis Persists for Economic Resources update in Libya. We'll go for that break and we'll wrap up the show shortly.
Hi, I'm Golda. I work here at the IMF. Our aim is to provide the best possible advice on economic policy to our member countries, helping them to create conditions so everyone prospers from economic growth. One question our economists are always getting: how can we reduce poverty and foster inclusive growth? There are a few ways to think about it. Some say the government should be heavily involved in the economy, with regulations to keep people safe and high taxes that fund and support a healthy, well-educated and inclusive society, even if it's at the expense of higher growth. Others believe that the government should have little or no part to play in the economy. Lower taxation means more money in everyone's pockets. More individual freedom, they say, means more economic growth overall. But maybe there's a target we all could be shooting for: the best policies on inclusion and growth. Essentially, inclusive growth is about making the economic pie bigger and sharing those slices more widely. So, how do we get there? By aiming for a middle ground. Both sides mostly recognize the need for social safety nets, public pensions, unemployment insurance, food programs. These measures prevent extreme poverty and provide a basic standard of living. At the IMF, inclusive growth is central to our work because reducing poverty is in everyone's interest. Part of having a free and equitable society is ensuring we all benefit from its growth, no matter who we are. And it's not just about creating a fair and equal chance to succeed for individuals, regions, or countries. It's about distributing growth fairly for future generations too. Overall, inclusive growth is based on the idea that wealth creation, economic freedom, and equal opportunity can and should coexist.
It's 57 minutes after 7. Sibuyakhulu ukuthi nihlale nathi ehlelweni lo muhla suku lekugcina lekuphumula thombeni bantu basema holidayini September ukuthi njengoba sutholile umbiko ku Pico ukuthi itikigaba cishe kubede ngicabanga uba lesinye besibe ngathi nje siyashaqisa lembo nje yeah otherwise cishe nje imibiko beyinhle kakhulu September nalo mhla ukuthi sitaqhubeka sibambe ngalolo nyawo lolo.
Ngicela kahle sanibona kusasa.
The Board of Directors, Management and Staff of Montigny wish His Majesty King Mswati III a happy 57th birthday. Montigny, we add value. Bayete, wena waphakathi.
Usike na i-university ibambisene nalamanye ma-structures babuka emakhambi esigabeni sekutheni singaze siphumelele kanjani kunqoba lenzaba yalumbulala.
The University Council, Senate, management, staff, and students of the University of Eswatini wish His Majesty King Mswati III a happy 57th birthday. Lunwele lolutse mbangazitha. Bayethe, wena waphakathi.
The Board of Directors, Management, and staff of Eswatini Television Authority extend their warmest wishes to His Majesty King Mswati III on the occasion of his 57th birthday. We celebrate this special milestone in recognition of his visionary leadership and unwavering commitment to the nation's development. May this year bring continued health, happiness, and prosperity as you guide Eswatini towards a bright and hopeful future. Lunwele loludze ngwenyama, khula mlisa, bayethe wena waphakathi.
The day you take Christ into your life, you begin to walk in a blessing.
Emaswati, master ushiya simakazi. Sibukela abanye bonkulunkulu. uNkulunkulu utawukhwesha kithi. Emaswati, singamlahli uNkulunkulu.
Sitomdumisa, sisho sithi uyigwele somali.
Mase ubutholile lobungcwele, hlala ungilongcwele.
Ningesabi niMaswati, this is our season. Nguye idolo, nguye namuhla.